Welcome back in this session. The one of the more theoretical concept of the how to launch the EC2 instance that we will discuss in this session. So let's try to understand what kind of EC2 instance we can launch in AWS console and what kind of instance launch supports by the AWS. So there are the different kind of supports AWS provide for the instance launching. So you can see that one is the on-demand reserve instance, spot instance, dedicated host, and dedicated instance. So all this type of instance you can create, and based on your requirement you can choose out of them, and you can understand the details about the which instance launching time you require for your use case. So let's try to understand what is the on demand. So on demand instance let you basically pay for the compute capacity by the hourly base or secondly, and there is no any long term commitment. So you not require any long term commitment for the specific instance use case. So it's used for the short term workload. That's a short term, basically you require the for specific use cases, so you can use that. This is important is the predictable pricing. You know the what could be the pricing for your instance of a specific time zone and what time you can use. So pay what you use. So this is the key point for this instance launch type. That's whatever you use, that only you have to pay, and it quite the price is quietly high, but you know the what is your predictable pricing. No any upfront payment, so you do not require any upfront payment for this launch type. Basically it's recommended for the uninterrupted workload, so you not require any interruption between your load, and basically also recommended for the auto scaling like use cases. So next one is the reserve instance. So let's try to understand what is reserve instance. So reserve instance launch type provide you the significant discount up to 75% comparatively on demand. So this is comparatively cheaper than the on demand. You have the flexibility of change your families and OS type, so you can use this flexibility in the reserve instance type. So basically this reserve instance used for the long term commitment and long term workloads, and basically you have to, for reserve instance you have to pay upfront your payment. So that's a key things, because they are giving the discount up to 75%, but you have to pay upfront. Basically you have to reserve your instance for the minimum 1 year to 3 year, and you have to choose your reserve instance is the instance types like a C5 or M5. So you have to make the reservation for specific instance type. So there are three different type of reserve instance. One is standard that we have discussed, and convertible. So convertible, basically you know that the name says that you can change your instance type. So you can change instance type from the X large to large, or large to X large. So you can change intermediate the instance type, but you have to pay that pricing. So that is not exactly 75% discount, but it's giving the up to 55% discount, but it's give the flexibility over the changing the instance type for your long-term commitment. Next one is a schedule. Schedule is basically used for the specific workload when you knows the workload for the reserve capacity of the workload, and you can use for the specific any gaming program or anything that gives the result oriented website where the specific traffic workload you know is predictable. So this workloads comes on specific exam computation. So that's a scheduled a reserve instance used for the specific windows where you knows the workload. So next instance launch type is the spot instance. So basically Amazon EC2 spot instance let you take the advantage to unuse the EC2 capacity in the AWS cloud. So there are basically some of instance are not using, or some of the workload and hardware are unused, so that particular specific capacity Amazon gives in the spot instance type. So spot instance are available at the up to 90% discount comparatively the on demand. So it's really cheaper than the on demand instance, but basically it's used for the only specific workload where you know the predictable time, or this is not for the your real-time use case where your server is going to live, or real-time use case of your customer. So basically it's used for the short-term workload price is, as told, as discussed, that comparatively very cheaper than the on demand, but there is a probability of you can lose your instance, so you can lose your data also. So basically you have to bid, so spot instance is work like you have to beat the price, and basically a price goes higher who get the instance. So basically you are using and someone else bidder get more than your bid price, so you will get the 2 minutes notification, and in 2 minute notification you have to make your data stores, else you will get lose your data. So you have to understand, basically it's used for the POC kind of work, where you have to analyze some data or having the some batch jobs. So it's used for the very short term use cases, so make sure you use this for the specific your use cases. So next instance launch type is the dedicated host, that basically AWS EC2 dedicated host is the physical server that with EC2 instance capacity fully dedicated to your use. And dedicated host can help you to address compliance requirement and reduce cost by allowing you to your existing server bound software license. So basically this used for the compliance licensing requirement for your some of the compliance requirement of client. So this used for the basically dedicated host, where the hardware will be dedicated to you, but you can use that hardware for specific licensing compliance purpose. So you can book entire physical server and save money of your licensing cost. So as you know, there you have already purchased your license, so you can use your own license to use here once you use a dedicated host. So basically a physical dedicated server for you use, and it's basically fully control EC2 instance for your placement. Basically it's visibility into the underlying of sockets. So the use for the licensing is the visibility to underlying sockets and physical core to your hardware, so you can understand what kind of underlying sockets you use in specific dedicated host. And basically it's quite expensive because it's giving the dedicated hardware. So you have to understand this will be makes the somewhat expensive for your use case. So you use for the software that compliance licensing model, that you can use your bring your own licensing. So this will be used for your licensing compliance purpose dedicated host. Next one is the dedicated instance. So dedicated instance are the Amazon EC2 instance that run VPC on hardware that dedicated the single customer. This is a fully hardware which will be dedicated to a specific single customer, and you can use this hardware for the launching your instance, this different instance. You can, the hardware will be shared with your only, and no one else can use your this hardware. So that's important, where the dedicated instance, the instance running on the hardware dedicated to you only may share hardware with other instance but same account. So it can be shared with hardware, but with not with any other account, with only you, and you can only use your dedicated instance. So these are the all the different instance launch type. So the question is which instance type we should use. So basically we should use the we cannot use the reserve, because we have to pay more and we have to pay upfront payment. Spot instance we have to bid, and it will be someone else can give the more price, will lose the instance. Dedicated host and instance will be for the hardware purpose, where we have to dedicatedly buy the hardware, so it will be more costly. So in our use case, for our learning purpose, we I should recommend the on-demand instance type, so we should use the on-demand instance type. So our next all session we will be use the on-demand instance type.